I'm amazed we learn any civility from a behaviorism point of view, given the inconsistency of the messages we receive. I mean, that was, I think in some ways it's gotten worse in multiple areas.
There's a lot of different voices now that weren't there when we were little. We didn't grow up with all these narratives.
This issue of like sexual interactions, relationships, behavior. The world we're in, the United States, is at its most highly sexualized. Porn is one of the best growth industries out there. If you study ads, like the gynecologist I was working with, who was working with the human trafficking group, their ads are sexualizing children at younger and younger ages. Hypersexuality in the culture, in media representations. Everybody has to be hypersexual now, not just men, right? And then on the other hand, you're supposed to be basically controlled.
Chaste, to say the least.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I've seen parents who, when we put our daughter in dance, and we would take her to a dance recital, and so there'd be several different dance groups there, all performing. And some of the costumes, and I was like, she's 4, like 5. Why in the hell is she dressed like this? Why is she gyrating poppet and locket kinds of stances and all of these things? Like, that's... But then again, the same mother would be like, well, don't ever sexualize my kid. Don't ever do this. Why are you doing that? Right. Now, I agree to a level that dance doesn't have to be seen as sexual either. And and that's a part of also societal construction of well, this is a sexual dance and this is not, or this is a provocative dance and this is not, and those kinds of things. But put it into the right context. That is the world we live in.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so if I just showed up at your front door dancing like that, do you feel that it's intimidating or whatever, or do you think it's provocative, or do you think it's sexual? So if we can say that, if here's like a thing I'm trying to say, the same people who were offended by Cardi B's song WAP had their kids dance to something very similar.
Yeah.
So can we have some consistency here?
Yeah.
That's all I want. And I'm not, that's for everybody to decide. And they have to find themselves. But going back to the topic of love and going to the notion of having all of these messages playing against each other, how hard are we making it for someone to understand who they are and have awareness and come close to loving the thing that they're finding?
Yeah.
Everything is a negative. A young man who has sex with a young woman is a god. She's a whore.
Yeah.
Socially. What? Well, how can he be a god without her?
Exactly.
And so now they're going to go away from that moment, him feeling as the best he's ever felt, her feeling less than. Self-destructing. I shouldn't have done that, but I felt like I had to. All of these things at odds now, all these different narratives are being written in the head. There's no consistency in them either.
And you think about it, Basin's double bind theory. Are we driven mad? His argument that certain forms of schizophrenia are a communication disorder. And the way this occurs is through this double bind. You're given one overt message. You're given another covert, which goes exactly against it. You're getting 2 very different messages. And then if you point out there's a contradiction, you're told you're crazy.
Oh, gaslit like forever.
And the moment you internalize things is the moment of madness.
Mm-hmm.
And what Bateson was doing was looking at schizophrenia, terrible disorder, and seeing how it could arise in families. through this kind of.
And we say it's biology based potentially, but it's also, you can't say that purely unless you've studied those people from birth on, or that you have the
Exactly.
genetic marker, because you're acting as if they didn't come from the same environment.
Yeah.
If that environment is exactly like you're saying, oh, you're good if, but you're shitty if, but it's the same if. I'm being punished and praised for the. That's tense.
That's tense. And then if you say, wait a minute, there's a contradiction, you go, no, there's not.
You don't understand yet. You'll understand when you get older.
I actually got to witness that at the mental hospital with a young man that I was working with. He was getting better. Paranoid schizophrenia, the same diagnosis. And it was family day. Oh, God. This is working max security, so it was a dangerous place. And for some reason, the psychiatrist didn't like the psychologist on the ward, but he liked me. I talked a lot with this psychiatrist, who happened to be the only African-American psychiatrist working in the entire hospital. Heck, I didn't know they let African-Americans at that time be doctors. He was absolutely brilliant. Remember, Dr. Parks, and he was family system. So I have this young man I've been working with very closely. We first bring in the sisters, I think, two sisters and the mom. And the young man is speaking very rationally about his own issues and hypersensitivities, but really about issues with dad. That he feels like dad never approves and all this. And that no matter what he does, it's wrong. And the daughters and the mom are like, your dad is like that. He is extremely verbally abusive. And they tell it, and everything's going fine. Then the dad walks in. And right away, I'm watching body language. With the daughters and the mom, it's open. The kid is open. He's sitting in the chair, feet down, his arms out. As soon as dad comes in, I notice that the mom and the daughters closed stuff. So does the son. The dad does not sit down. He starts yelling immediately, yelling at the kid, you're a lazy son of a bitch. I don't know why he's fucking here. He needs to be at home. He needs to be working. He needs his ass kicked. And
don't you love that ass kick is an answer for everything?
Everything. And then
just
the kid,
kick his ass.
The kid, I say, man, the young man who was being deprived of his humanity, pulled up like this, started rocking and crying and sucking his thumb, which dad said, look, he's a little baby. But the important thing that I'm watching is the behavior of the mom and the sisters. They immediately change. Dad's right. He just needs his ass kicked. And the kid even brings up, you just said, no, we didn't. No, we didn't. And the kid then begins to have an acute psychotic breakdown. And this is max security. He gets violent. Now, I was lucky because he never once got violent with Gabe. I don't know why, but I could go in first. And so I'm the one that's left to take him off to seclusion. And the psychiatrist keeps everything on hold till I come back. He said, we have to talk more to Gabe, which I found interesting. I'm 19 years old. I'm a psych tech. And he said, Gabe, what did you see? And I just described exactly what I'm saying. Now, at the time, I didn't know about Bateson. And I'm pissed as hell. I mean, I have to have a little therapy session with the doctor about who's crazy here. I mean, the kid's obviously in trouble. He's got some serious problems in living. But look at this stuff. Now, you could point all the fingers at the dad. But what about that mom and daughters? And it turned out they were scared to death of the dad. They were very conscious the dad was just an abusive prick. And they were deflecting everything to the son so that they didn't get hit. Mm-hmm. And of course, my comment to the doctors, what the fuck do I do? What do any of us do? Where are the crazy people? Out there in here? He said, Gabe, that is a question. Doc, what do we do? I've come to love this young man, back to love. He said, Gabe, he got better, didn't he? I said, oh, yeah. He said, well, now we got to get creative. Mm-hmm. He said he did have a psychotic break. You saw it. I said, major. He said, yeah, I have to note that. But he said, here's the deal. He said, because he had such an extreme break, I can say that for his own safety, he's not allowed to visit with any of the family members for their safety for at least 6 months. He smiles. And he said,
What a
"Dave,
reprieve."
we saw him improve in 2 months. Now give him 6. And hope to God he develops that kind of ego strength he's going to need to move outside of that stuff,
To learn how to live in spite of
that.
not for. I had to do that when I did mental health work. There's a lot of. I remember one of my first clients was a young gay man, and I called the family to set up a first appointment, and the mom was like, "Well, he thinks he's gay," and I go, and so she said, "I need you to straighten him out." And I said, "Oh, I don't know that that's possible. I don't know that there's anything to." You do know this isn't that kind of therapy, right? Like we're not gonna work to that end. And when I met him, his sexual orientation was not in question. It was clear he was gay, and he was happy about being gay. But his mother kept the narrative of, you will never be anything, you'll never amount to anything in your life, you'll just be gay, with all the other slurs that she could throw on top of that. And so this is one of the cases that frustrated me about working in mental health, because we get to work with them for an hour.
Yes.
Unless it's inpatient like you're doing, and then they go home to this, right, which is constant. And so I don't, we are all so very, very broken. And when you asked, and this is immediately what I thought of when you said, well, who are the crazy people? The ones in here, the ones out there? To keep up this facade that we're not supposed to have love, and that we're supposed to be disconnected from one another and not care, that we can all be compartmentalized in a cubicle village without understanding the relationships that we have and the impact of those relationships, is mind numbing and insane to me.
Insane.
I just think that is the worst part of humanity. Because it lacks all of the things that humanity is supposed to be.
Supposed to be.
I just so that takes me all the way back to bell hooks. Oh, if there was, I'll put these 3 books in the comments, and if you have any books to add to it, I'm happy to put those in as well. If you're interested in love, or as a concept or construct, bell hooks all about love is one that I can't suggest enough. Eric Fromm's The Art of Loving is divinity. And Leo Buscaglia, who I don't know if I'm saying his name exactly accurate. I always say it that way. That's the way it makes sense to me. Who was known as Dr. Love at Stanford, who taught a course on love where he had students hold hands. He said, reach to the person next to you and hold their hand. Just hold their hands while I'm talking, and we'll get through this, and you can keep doing it. Can you imagine what that felt like?
Yeah.
To be the student who didn't get touched all last week, and all of a sudden you're holding a stranger's hand. That would be medicine.
Yeah.
It would be medicine. But he wrote a book called Love. And oddly enough, all 3 of them also write about self-awareness and how to build the self, and what it means to build a self. So all 3 of those individuals also write books on personhood and that. But their books on love, I started a love library for both of my kids, and I started buying them.
See, and I'm sitting here and
love.
going, once again, I've read over 10,000 fucking books. You would think I would have read some books about love.
No, but this is funny. This is funny. Because this is the one topic we really never talked about. That's why I wanted to do it.
That's it.
Because, I mean, we've mentioned some things, we've hit around it. But we've never really gone straight into it.
I would love to give anybody who's listening and watching out there, well, if They don't know about it. Go play on the internets a little bit. Don't even need to read a book. I didn't book for this, but that most scandalous of love stories between Peter Abelard and Eloise. That scholastic monk who makes huge leaps in logic and goes in places that you wouldn't expect. Ends up with a scandalous love story with his underage student, who I believe, having read her response, was the adult in the relationship.
Was that a movie also recently?
I don't know. It should have been a movie. It is has all the
Sounds
stuff
like one
of
at
the
least.
great story. But I do think it's one of those. It's an exemplar of the tragic, in some ways, love stories. You know, Romeo and Juliet story, but this was real. This really, really happened. And admit to a certain extent to not liking Abelard as much as I like Eloise. Because what does happen between the two? It's a scandal. It's a monk, after all. I don't want to give a lot of details. I want you to find some of the nice, salacious details about this. Is that she ends up being head of a convent. That would be very interesting. And she writes him a series of letters about love. And in those letters, she shows her love at so many levels. He was one of the highest logicians of his day, if not ever. And he is teaching her logic. And so she is using that high formal logic to express her argument about love. And the coward, as far as I know, does not respond to it. To me, it's a beautiful story which captures much of our humanity. It's one I used to tell students in history and systems and say, you know, we still have stuff to find out. They had a child, and they were both extremely intelligent nerds, who they named Astrolabe, after a mechanical computing device. No one knows what happened to little Astrolabe. And so history is not complete till we know what happens to little Astrolabe.
Well, until we know what happened. And it's that's what's interesting about love. It is the grandest vulnerability. It has to be an abduction. It's only going to come in the truest form, which is honestly, there only is one form. If you're saying, anytime someone says, well, that's just the best they can love, that means they're not loving someone. I'm sorry. Bell Hooks says this, I agree with her. If they're like, well, they're just not capable of that kind of love, then that means they're using you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Love doesn't have those conditions. You're loving a version of that person that must accommodate your expectation. And when you have an expectation of someone, you're not loving them. I asked this to students the other day. I said, do any of you have expectations of people in your life that maybe aren't the best to have, or based on you and not really them? Does anybody have that? No hand went up, because everybody knows that's kind of gross to say. And I said, have any of you ever been disappointed in someone? Every hand goes up. I said, so you've had those expectations of people that they didn't do, right? Like that's what disappointment is. And they're all like, oh, I was like, yeah, no, and that's okay, because we've all done that. But that doesn't mean we all should continue to do it. There are things that we should grow from. And I know, I know a lot of people say, well, but like, if you have a partner, you get married, it's okay to have expectations of them. No, still not. It's okay to have expectations of yourself. You're the only person you have agreements with. And if somebody, I remember I had a student who came up to me at the end of the first couple of weeks, crying, ugly crying. I was like, what's wrong? Did I say something offensive? Like, Jesus. I started thinking about what I said. And I'm like, why are you this upset? And she said, I don't want to be a doctor. I want to be a psychologist. And I was like, that's good news. Why are you crying about this? This is a great day. And she goes, because my mom said I'm a failure if I'm not a doctor. And I looked at her and I said, tell your mom to get off her ass and go become a doctor. That's a her thing. It's not a you thing.
It.
And she said, what? And I said, no, write this down. Tell your mom to get off of her ass and go become a doctor. If she thinks the family needs a doctor in it that bad, that is her responsibility to carry forward.
I'll give you a Gabeism, which captures this. That apparently I throw out little weird aphorisms. I had a student who made a list. She said, "Oh, these are fun." And there are things I didn't know that I said.
All I had a student tattoo one of them on their body of something I said. And I was like, nothing that I've said deserves to be a tattoo. This is insanity. But I'm also
they're all
honored.
At least get me a disciplinary moment, but I'd talk my way out, and make the dean look stupid again, which is, geez, I shouldn't do this. It's just terrible, but I would do this. But a Gabeism. The road to our hells are paved with other people's good intentions.
Absolutely. So she tells her mom, my professor said you need to become a doctor if you think a doctor is so important for our family.
Of course she did.
And so she comes back to me and she goes, my parents want to meet you, want to have a conference with you. And I was like, we're in college. I don't need a conference with your family. I said, but if you want me to, if it'll be helpful for you. I said, I don't have to give a shit about your family. You understand this. But if you want me there, 100%, I'll be happy to meet them. So we all meet. Mom, dad come in. She's sitting next to me. It's us versus them, right? And we start talking. Turns out mom's sister is a therapist. And I said, so you know they can be successful, right? And she was like, well, I just think it would be more job security. And I was like, there's no such thing. There's meaning and what your life means to have meaning and not. And we talked, right? And I'm unbelievably happy to report she is finishing her master's in counseling as we speak. And mom and dad left hugging me from that meeting. And then also hugged me when she graduated with her first degree.
Yeah, see?
And then that's the thing is, mom wasn't even that invested in the doctor thing. She just thought that would be a surefire way her daughter would be safe.
And look at her.
And you tell yourself that narrative enough, and it becomes this has to be this way.
It's doing the very thing that I think the intentionality here was attempting to not do. She was trying to give her the most freedom and the most security at the same time.
The most power, the most acclaim, and
that
social.
For her, that, I came to thought it. My father wanted me to run an insurance agency, and he did to me, and I fought it, and it just felt wrong. And the work, he starved me of certain kind of resources. But at the same time, I understood then, and I really understand now. I feel now. His intentions were as pure as they could be. And in part, he was right. I would have more security if I'd done that. Some financial, I suspect. I'd be dead of liver disease because I'd have to drink myself every day just to face a fucking actuarial table. But his intention was good. And yet that intention created a hell for me.
And then this is it. So if your intention isn't based on the person, but based on your limited understanding, which everybody's is limited. I don't give a shit. You've read 10,000 books. Your understanding of what your daughter should be is limited to your experiences.
My experiences.
So you're more likely to say, I think you should do what I did. So on and so forth. So from their limited view, this was a solution. But if that solution is closed, then it's not a solution of love. It can't be, because love says, be so unbridledly unbound, untethered, and unconnected that you're just going to explore what might be and might not be. You might have to recover from it, but go do it. And that a lot of parents have a hard time saying, no, go do that, because they're afraid.
Yeah.
And their intention is good, but the intention's not loving. Loving is to say, hey, go do the thing. And if it doesn't work out, we've got the room still. And you come home and recover and go back out and do it again.
You know, that's when I looked at that. Now, that shift as they become young adults, my job is not to control at all. My job is to, if they ask, to give them the best advice, wisdom I can at that time, but really, it's to let them make their own decisions, and more importantly, to fail. And then to be there to help them pick up the pieces.
Yes.
Not to say I told you so, because you never said. Told them what to do.
Right.
If they ask advice, you laid out possible opportunities, always with that qualification. This is how I'm seeing it.
And maybe you can prove me wrong. Maybe you'll provide more evidence for me to give this advice to someone else.
And then to know, you know, parents want to do what you want to give. Well, to understand what you're giving is a little different. And, you know, maybe I should have been more assertive about giving advice when it wasn't asked for.
No, you know what? You know what? I don't think so, because your kids are both doing really well. I don't think so, right? There's not evidence to support that. They're both really thriving in their ways. Are there problems or rough edges in some areas? Sure, but so for you too. Like that is true for all of us.
The rough edges.
And so, like, I think, so I like that you said, if they ask. I, on the other hand, have probably played into it giving advice when I wasn't asked for it too many times, which creates an unnecessary tension. And I do that because of the way I was raised and things. It felt very normal, very comfortable for me, that I should have questioned, and I didn't. But I think, you know, if I'm honest, again, it's intentions, but those are mine, not theirs. And so what I've had to do is catch myself and say, you know what? Give it a go. Let's find out together.
Yeah.
Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But let's just see. Let's just see what happens. And see where it goes. Because hell, I don't know everything. Far from it. And if I'm open to learn something and they're wanting to learn it, either pro or con, or, you know, go for it. So I think that's what it is. And besides that, how many people do we know collectively who have played it by the books, done exactly what they were supposed to do, and are fucking miserable?
Miserable. I would say more miserable with that.
Right. And when people say, well, I'm not miserable, I enjoy with your antidepressants, is that how you enjoy it? Because that's not the same thing.
That's not the same thing.
And that's not to say anything about somebody who has to take antidepressants, but if you're taking antidepressants because you have to cope with your life, like you said, I would have to ruin my liver in order to live that life. If you're having to do that, then it's not that. And that's one of the people who come home stagnant, fall asleep, they're barely making it through the day, their brain's not being engaged in any way. That's not happiness. And if you're not happy, how are you in love with yourself? I read this the other day, and it's by one of my favorite. And I'm going to write and put her name in there because there was such a cool story about me meeting her. There's a French musician named Jenny Beth, who said one of the greatest lines, and it was so funny because she does this on Instagram. She has an Instagram account, and she'll do 20 things. So 20 things that she's noticed or whatever, right? And one of the 20 was, I keep myself so busy because if I don't, all I'll do is fall in love again. Isn't that fun? I have to say, so busy because all I'll do is fall in love. And I mean, we're talking about an artist who's all their acts are love. All they do is love. And so, what's funny is this is one of the weirdest things. I don't know. It feels like we've gone for a long time today. Apologies. But she came up with a T-shirt for her band that says, "I had sex with Jenny Beth," and I was like, "That is the funniest shirt that any band has ever put out." Hilarious. So I bought it, and like I think she said something like on social media, "If you wear this to one of my shows, I will meet you." And so I felt it safe. I was never going to meet her, being that she's French and I'm here in Oklahoma, and why would anybody from France go to Oklahoma? Lo and behold, a few years ago, she's touring with, who was it? I don't even remember. I wasn't super interested in the headliner. Great band, been around for a long time. Dave Grohl was in them for a little bit. My brain's just not working. Whatever. She was touring with them. So she's coming to Oklahoma City. And I was like, what? This is absurd. I'm going. Buy my ticket, put on my "I had sex with Jenny Beth" T-shirt, and I go. I shit you not. Pull in, park, start walking in. As I'm walking into the Criterion, as I'm walking in, I see these two women coming. And I look up, and it's her.
You were the shirt.
I was early, so I was just going to go in, and she looks up and points to me, and I go, "You, me? Look at you." And so we walk up, and she's like, "How are you?" And so we start talking, and I was like, "This is the weirdest thing ever." And so I was like, "We have to have a picture of this, don't we?" Like, I feel like she's like, "Absolutely." And so the other musician with her, that was a part of her supporting group, takes a picture of us. I think I took a selfie, and she took one with her phone. A few days later, she puts it up on her Instagram. So I am on her Instagram. I had a wonderful meeting with a fan, and blah blah blah, and it was just wonderful. And she literally is one of my favorite, not because of that, artists, because she also wrote a book of short story erotica, which I would put right there with Aeneas Nin. It is some of the strongest writing. That her partner, who's also a musician and also in the band, did a bunch of photos with, and I've got that book in the other room. It's a real big, amazing book. She is as open and vulnerable as you can be as a human being. It's not. She's not fencing in. She's just out there. And so for her to say, "I keep myself busy because if I don't, all I'll do is fall in love," makes perfect sense, because she lives right there with it all day, every day. And she's open to that madness of, "Oh, this is the best strawberry I've ever had." It's, "Oh my God, have you tried the strawberry? It's the best." It's that infectious, beautiful place that I would aspire to be in.
Me too. And it's
that I'm too closed off to be in.
Me too. Back to Amir and Honey. I mentioned at one point, I was talking about mangoes. Right? He's from Pakistan. I just mentioned him, and he writes me. I wish I would have kept it. A 3-page explanation of the higher function of mangoes. It was the funniest, greatest thing. And he was talking about, "Oh, you haven't had a mango yet until you've had one of my moms." And then he talks about in his village, highly competitive. If you get a mango from someone else, oh no. No. If someone sees that, they will call you over. "You had one of their mangoes aren't very good. You have to have one of my mangoes." And everybody talks about mangoes, and the mangoes of years past and mangoes to come. It was the most beautiful appreciation. His description of biting in to a mango, he said, "I have never had a ripe mango right off the mango tree. And how the juice runs down his face. And you can feel the sun warming the juice." Well, I really...
Your face still feels sticky already. You're like, "I need that." But that's it, though, right? That perfect experience.
That perfect experience.
That transcendent moment that love is.
And that, yes.
A pure abduction of us, because we're open to what will change us to be the better versions of
And
ourselves as we
it's
go.
not sane, it's not algebraic. It's a kind of madness.
It is a
Yeah, that's one
madness.
thing I liked about the Greeks. It seems like I'm so sick of Western psychology and its mechanization of love. The Greeks are very smart about things, but they never forget this is experience. So to be in love, to be the lover, you experience mania.
Yes.
And everybody around you, you can't expect me to act sanely. If I'm acting sanely, I am not in love. And the poor beloved, who's the sane one in the relation, oh shit. Because they say there's always one that's really loving and one that's loved, the beloved. And they admit which one is better, the rational beloved one or the lover. The lover is better. To have that mania is better.
Because the practical stuff is great. It is. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. In psychology, right, we have the passionate love and the companionate love, or the
Yeah.
compassionate love, right? One of those is a bottle rocket. It's meant to explode.
Yes.
You can't sustain that forever, but it's what we write books about.
And we get little graphs and
exactly right. It's
arousal curves.
what
Shit.
movies are made of. It's that.
It's that.
Right? The companion or compassionate love is what sustains us daily. It's somebody who's going to wipe our ass when we can't do it for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? The passion's not doing that. The passion about, no, that's gross. You handle that yourself. Right? But that companion love. So there's always this interchange between the two. How can you keep passion long? I tell students this all the time. You know, you teach them to a room of mostly 20-year-olds. Okay. You're 20. Average life expectancy is about 80. You meet the love of your life right now. Then that means you're telling me you're willingly going to go through the next 60 years with never having another first kiss. Really? That intoxicating wait, did that touch mean that? And did you... We know what the first kisses are like. The open mouth, like trying to consume them. Enamels scraped off and a tooth is chipped. Or all these... Somebody's pressed against the wall, hair's pulled, God knows what's happening. That is the heat. That is pure passion. And we call that passionate love. That is a form of love. It does not have to be sexual.
No.
It can be a mango, right? It could be, it's this openness to explore this
Pope Francis
euphoria.
talking about our gifts, the gift of sexuality. It's just a gift, enjoy it. But then he talked about food. We should enjoy a good meal. And as he's talking, I'm starting to think, drool coming in. And I'm like, now here's this Pope telling us to enjoy sensuality.
Yes.
To, in some ways, accept the madness of the pleasure that comes with that, of the mango.
Keep some of that madness in the nice complacency and the nice normalcy of a companionate love. But keep madness, and you keep it for yourself. Being able to be swept away in a mango, well, that brings something back to that relationship. Being able to be swept away, it's important of us as humans. So that's a part of this love thing. And or are you? And this is, I know a lot of people will say, well, then maybe, Stephen, relationships should be open relationships all across the board so that people are still always open for whatever. And I'm going to be the first to tell you, I don't know that I could rock an open relationship personally. I just don't think I could. Do I think they should be normalized? Do I think people? Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. If that's who you are and that's who your partner are together, wonderful for both of you.
To a certain extent, wouldn't you say it's
just not for me?
But if it's going to last, it has to have an openness to it. But not necessarily an openness to another partner.
Right.
It could take that form,
but it doesn't have to.
But it doesn't have to do that. Very hard to do. But I'm with you, and for me, this idea of the possibilities to explore out there. I honestly find that beautiful and fascinating about the human. Uh, I'm too old to do a lot of things that I know a lot of young people.
Many things you may have explored before, too, right? Like,
I have said occasionally.
You look at it like, my hip can't do that anymore.
Here's good at probably kid hells for students that when I am discussing Gnostic thought forms and bring up tantric, I'm like, the Kama Sutra has positions in it that are physically impossible. Don't use it as a how-to book.
Exactly. Appreciate your reality. Full-fledged.
That's
right. If your hip doesn't bend that direction, don't force it. That's not the way. It's just never will be. But I think what you're saying here though is something that a lot of people fail to understand. You get into a relationship, and let's say you're married for 30 years or 40 years, whatever number of years, decades, and you think you've consumed all of the possibilities. Well, we've done everything. That's a very narrow view. To think that in 40 years you can exhaust the possibilities of another person or yourself. Shit, I don't know who I'm going to be in the next 5.
Yeah.
I'm still developing that person.
Me too.
To think it's exhausted already?
I may yet go through puberty. I'm hanging out.
Yeah. I have no chest hair still. I'm waiting for it. Aggressively. Supposed to happen. But I think that's the thing of love. And I guess I know I'm sure we've gone past our hour. But let's say this. We'll wrap in closing.
By way of summation, thus,
for me, loving yourself is not selfishness. It's necessary. And you should be deeply in love with that person, whoever you decide it is that you are. Then once you love yourself completely, you find somebody that complements that pushes it forward, challenges it, doesn't just allow it to be, but doesn't say it should be something else. Say, well, wait, you said you were going to be X, but now you're being Y. So which is it that you want to be? That's holding something accountable. It's not, and that's challenging it. That's not saying, oh, you should be W. 100% you should be W. You're doing the wrong thing if you're not that. So that's kind of how I mean that. But if we're doing all of the work, like my friend Jenny Beth, my best friend, perhaps, I don't know, my best French friend, I could say that, would have it. If you're so entrenched in love, everything you're doing is love. And your friend Amir they're in the moment of love. They're living it.
Yeah.
Beautifully. And it shows in the happiness and the vitality in which it doesn't mean they don't have down days, of course, but their down days are, they wake up to that beauty.
It glows.
Yeah.
You can
So
see it.
I would say fall in love with yourself. Take yourself on a date. If you're not happy, can you eat by yourself? You go to a restaurant by yourself.
Yeah.
I'm great company. There's like 6 of me in here at least.
When I was single, I do a lot of things. I go to the drive-in by myself. Occasionally go bowling.
Did you make out with yourself at the drive-in sometimes?
I think I always planned to make out with myself, but I got too drunk and stoned and passed out before I could get that far. And then I would wake up in the morning and wonder,
did I make out with myself?
Did I make out with myself? Have I been molested? Are my pants unzipped?
Fair question.
But I feel like by way of summation, God, I'm read so little about love. But to add to your reading list, read Love and Death in the American Novel, Leslie Field.
Ooh, yeah.
It's a
Ooh, what about Barth's Discourse on Love?
Barth's. Oh, yes.
That's so much fun. It's a little deeper, a little muddier walk, but it's
and Love and
really
Death
fun.
In the American Novel is you won't be the same after you read this. And if you can't handle the whole book, there is an essay which captures it entitled "Come Up on the Raft Again, Huck Honey." And I'll leave it with that. This could open up a hell of a discussion.
I like that. All right. We've gone everywhere today. I will post notes as I do with everything. Thank you. Remember, you might not want to like and share this one because it just went forever. But that's what love does. Hopefully, go forever.
You could share it to get revenge on one of your enemies.
There it is. Say, watch this or I hate you.
Like,
oh, no. If you love me, you will watch
Oh, this would be beautiful, wouldn't it? And then have a little quiz afterward with questions which have nothing to do with anything we say.
Right. What is my favorite color?
I like it. And then get back to us if you perform that.
That would be exciting. But thank you for your patience and willingness to subject yourself to this. As I think we are, I'm loving it.
Well, I am too, and I'm just, I have never been in my life at the moment where I feel compelled not to speak. And on the other hand, how can I not talk to you? But in order for me to do this, I'm like, if I imagine people are actually listening to this, I won't talk, or I'll begin to censor myself. And I don't want to do that. I'd rather not talk than censor myself. So what I'm imagining is, as audience, is some of those old outlaws who know me, who maybe are in jail, or you should know I'm still going. Obviously, a lot of students over the years.
Yeah.
People out there. If people don't like me, don't fucking watch me unless you just want to laugh with me. But I keep thinking, who would be my ideal audience? Remember when we had the COVID thingy?
Yeah.
And we had to look at a screen and teach our students online, the worst possible thing for me.
Right.
And I even had an old laptop, nothing would work right. But I was teaching like 3 classes back to back, right? Which is probably good. They're all at once. But I found out towards the end of one of my history and systems classes, which I know I was phenomenally boring, that one of my students' mom sat in every day. And it was right at her margarita time. And the way I found out about this is I'd always tell my students at the end, you need to go pleasure yourself and have a drink. And I say that at the end of class one day, and this hand comes across the screen, and there's a big margarita. And then I'm told, this is Mom.
My mom's literally doing your assignment.
And Mom's like, this is the most entertaining thing out there, especially when I'm slightly buzzed. Do you mind? And I began to think of a whole bunch of moms getting lit, listening to me. And I'm like, this is perfect.
That's like the greatest compliment you could probably get.
I was like, and shit, I'm talking about history of science and epistemology and all this stuff. I'm like, this is as good as it gets. Bring all your moms. And that's when I found out that, is it okay if we have our cat?
Yes.
Sure. Can I have my dog? Students admit their cats seem to find me more interesting than they do. I'm like, well, then bring them on. So yeah, I'm imagining that mom out there with a margarita. It was a big one. She knew what she was doing. And so that...
You could take a big one down in the time that we've been on today, though. I mean, like, you could, right? Like,
yeah, that's it. That's
perfect timing for that.
Yes. And if we get some absinthe here and I actually break the fast, well, then I'm going to do it alone.
Yeah. Here's what I want to... this is something that might happen one day. Maybe. Neither one of us are technology gifted, or gifted in technology, but what I've been thinking of is maybe eventually we could do one that's live, not pre-recorded. Have people hop on.
Ah, that would be rocking.
And then they could interact more, and it'd be a little bit more like it was being a classroom setting, where they could ask questions or whatever to the best of our ability, and we could try to answer them. So that might happen at some point, and we can try to. I'll try to figure out that side of it to do but I think it'd be fun.
I think that would be cool.
Just to get, we've got, we've got almost 20 subscribers right now, Rob. We're getting there.
That's it.
God dang. We're almost Joe Rogan level. And here's the thing. How the hell does he have that many? Should we say more things to make like the patriarchy better, and then we could be Joe level, to just be like, yo, bros, bitches be tripping. And then like more people would watch? I hope not.
No.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
I'm ready. I'm more likely to say the feminist slant and like,
me too.
yeah, let me go that direction. Joe can have the bros. I don't want them. They don't think very much.
Of course, I can introduce concepts which will piss everybody off. Like
Exactly.
my really reverential concept of the sturdy lesbian, which has to be explained, of course.
If not, it's very problematic.
Yes.
Like, if we don't say anything else right there, people are going to be like, what the fuck? And rightfully so, which is exactly why we're going to leave that as a cliffhanger. We're not doing it. You don't know what it means.
That's it. I've been through this before, and where did I get the concept? A gay man. And then it just played out.
Yeah. It's as things do. But
once you say things, you can't take it back.
No, and nor should you.
And
because it becomes a growth moment.
And if you
take it back, you
if
lose
you continue to speak, you'll probably make it worse. But it will be rich and refined in its horror. That's the way I kind of got through life. Oh, I said the wrong thing. Now I'm going to speak and make it worse.
Too many times. My daughter probably has stories. Like that fucking guy. Yeah, that's a fair one.
That's how my family holds our little get-togethers. Remember the time that Dad did this?
You're like, I didn't do that. And they have it on video. And you're like,
yeah. I think I managed to move around very quickly so they couldn't film me very often. That's I hope.
Yeah. No, that's a smart move. Thank you. I hope you feel love. I sincerely hope you give yourself the love you deserve. Number one, we'll train you what to expect from others. That's the main reason we start to love ourselves. So now we know what to expect from others when they say they love us. But I love you all, even if I don't know you. 100% I love you.
It's easier sometimes to love people you don't.
So much easier. You know what I mean? I've got that grandma. Like it's hard. That's work. You give me nothing that makes it hard. It's easy to do. Love you.
Perfect.
But next week, do we have a topic, or are we going to think about it?
We could just think, or you throw something out, and then we could somehow avoid talking about it.
Yeah, to the best of our ability. Do you have anything on your mind that's pressing?
No, not really.
Okay, I don't either. So love was always my goal. We got there. So now, let's think about it. Well, think about it. If you have ideas that you want us to talk about, like, I don't know, why you are your worst enemy, that's something we could talk about.
Well, I just gave him a read.
Because it's fun.
I just gave him a great book to read, Love and Death. I am well equipped to speak of death these days.
We kind of started with death, with the end, right?
We did. We're starting with the end.
And then we start with the beginning. We hit the beginning now, I guess, love, right? And so we've got the end and the beginning kind of out there. And now we just need to fill in all the other gaps.
And this reminds me of my former mentor, the great departed Irishman, who told me he loved to get married and loved to fall in love. And he was the best person in the world to get divorced from, because he would end up better off after than before. But he said he had a real hard time with all that stuff in between that marriage and divorce.
His perfect idea: wedding, honeymoon, annulment. That would have been pretty solid. I know some people would probably want that same kind of effort. the party with
I'd
the
have
woman.
married him just for the quality of the divorce.
I like to just entrench myself in those trenches and just keep working it out. Exciting. Anyway, thank you all. I hope you're all having the best end of April you could imagine. The next time we see you, we will be high time in May. Amazing. We'll have a concept. He'll have a new name. I'll still be Steven.
That's right.
Be well. Parting word. Go.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out what this name thing is. I'll leave you on this note, and it's from the Benjamin thing that I wanted to talk about. Benjamin says that it is our spiritual task, outlined in the Bible, to complete God's creation through the act of naming. That is really the unique role of the human. That all of nature cannot speak. And he said, if nature could speak, nature would lament. Why? Because nature cannot speak. So who speaks for nature? Us, the namers. So I want to end on that note, you namers. Think about naming. Okay?
I like that. Take care.
Yeah.